Good day, everyone.
I am Jana Nicola.
I'm Razel Kumaling.
I am Alex B. Shalongo.
And I am Maria Christine B. Buligao.
We are the Group 9.
And we are here to show you our video tutorial about qualitative and quantitative variables and independent and dependent variables.
Hello everyone, I am Jana Nicola, and for today, we're going to talk about the qualitative variables. So, what is qualitative variables? A qualitative variable, also called as a categorical variable, is a variable that fits into categories. Very simply, a qualitative variables is a variable that is not numerical. Qualitative variables that are not measurement variables. Their values do not result from measuring or counting. So, here are some examples of a qualitative variable. The first one is the eye color. So, eye color is a category, and the variables that could fit into that category are blue, green, brown, hazel, color eye. The second one is states. So, states is a category, and the variables that could fit into that categories are Florida, New Jersey, and Washington. Those are the categories of states. So, we have here the dog breeds. Dog breeds is a category, and the variables that could fit into the categories are Alaskan, Malinois, German Shepherd, Siberian Husky, and Shih Tzu. Qualitative variables are categories that results in descriptive values. Qualitative variables can be further broken down into nominal, ordinal, and binomial. So, we will start with the nominal variables. So, nominal variables are qualitative variables that only refers to the information by name and does not have to be listed in any order. For example, we have here the genotype, blood type, zip code, race, eye color, and political party. The next one is ordinal. Ordinal is the results that are listed in a certain order or follow some type of ranking system. For example, the socio-economic status starting from low income, middle income to high income. The next one is the education, from elementary, high school to college. The next one is income level starting from less than 50k to 50k to 100k and over 100k. And the last one is the satisfaction rating starting from extremely dislike, neutral, like to extremely like. The next one is the binary variables. So binary variables are variables which only take two values. For example, male, female, true or false, yes or no. While many variables and questions naturally binary, it is often useful to construct binary variables for the types of data. For example, turning age into two groups.
So now, we will discuss quantitative variable. Quantitative variable is a variable that is conceptualized and analyzed along a continuum implied. It differs in amount of degree, also termed as numerical variable. Variable that yield frequencies when counted, giving rise to discrete variable of when measured yield metric or continuous variable. Quantitative variables also measure or identify an information using numeric skills. So, meaning to say that we always using a number or it will be involved a number. So for example, the height. So height, it can be centimeter, meter, or inches. So for example, 1.6 meters. So we use a number. So next is the number of siblings. The number of siblings, we can also use a number to determine how many siblings you are. And also speed of a car. Speed of a car, we use a kilometer per hour. So we use also a number. And next is temperature. Temperature, it can be Fahrenheit or Celsius. So, and to determine how temperature it will be, so we will use a number. The next, the number of students in a classroom. Typically, the average of students in a classroom is 40 students or 45. So, we will use a number to determine how many they are. So, quantitative variables can be classified as discrete variable and continuous variable. Discrete variable whose values can be counted using integral values. So ang discrete variable, it will be countable and it will be counted using integer values. And in this variable, we will not using a decimal. We always use a whole number or an integer. For example, is the number of students in a classroom. So continuous variable can assume any numerical value over an interval or intervals. So sa continuous variable, we use this a decimal or makagama tag decimal between an integer 1 and 2. For example, 1 and 2. So makagama tag, for example, 1.5. So sa discrete variable, it will be countable, and while the continuous variable is more on measured or measurement. And I hope you learned something, guys. Thank you.
So now, let's talk about dependent variable. Dependent from its word depend or based on. What is dependent variable? Dependent variable is a variable that is being measured or tested in an experiment or research project. It is a variable that depends upon the factor that the researchers controls or manipulates. If the dependent variable is the cost, then the dependent variable is the effect. It is also the result or the outcome and always depends on another factor. The goal of this experiment or study is to explain or predict the dependent variable caused by the independent variable. We must always remember that dependent variable depend on the independent variable and make changes to the independent variable. To identify the dependent variable is to find the hint or the clue. Read it twice in order for you to locate or identify which is dependent and independent variable. DV or dependent variable depend on IV or independent variable. Here are some examples. The hour you study determined by your test score. The dependent variable here is the test score, because the test score you got depend on the number of hours you study. Another example is the impact of using multimedia on students' academic achievement in high school. The dependent variable here is the student's academic achievement, because it depends how the student use or spend an hour using multimedia. Here are another examples. In study of how different doses of drugs affect the severity of symptoms. The severity or intensity of symptoms is the dependent variable because it is tested on the use of different doses of drugs.
What is independent variable? Independent variable is exactly what it sounds like. It is a variable that stands alone and isn't changed by the other variables you are trying to measure. In fact, when you are looking for some kind of relationship between variables, you are trying to see if the independent variable have a direct effect on the dependent variable. So, we will find out the independent variable in the given situation. A psychology student want to know if the emotional quotient of a student affect his or her performance in math test. Let's see what are the possible variables. So, a psychology student is the one who did the study. So the first variable is the emotional quotient of a student, while the other variable is the performance in a math test. As we look out to our given situation, we want to know if the emotional quotient affects math test performance. Looking with that logic, our independent variable is emotional quotient of the student, and our dependent variable is the performance in a math test. Not the other way around, that the performance of the math test affects the emotional quotient because the emotional quotient is already fixed. This math test performance is what we can measure.